What up? This is Rama Screen, and in the anticipation of Wish Dragon arriving June 11, only on Netflix, I'm here talking with the score composer of this new film, Philip Klein. How are you, Philip?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So let me start with the obvious question first. How did you get on board this project? What drew you or what attracted you to Wish Dragon?
I had a pretty long relationship with producer Aaron Warner, who's a brilliant producer that's done the Shrek films and amongst many other animated hits. And he was working on it with Chris way back in the infancy of the project, and figured that I would be a good fit. Um, and so I reached out to him, and well, actually, he reached out to me. He said, I think you and Chris would get along really well. And so I submitted some demos, and Sony was kind enough to take a bit of a shot on me because was a bit younger at that point in my life. So thankfully they did. And I mean, when he showed me the first few, uh, it was mostly storyboards early on when I was looking at it. They were all beautiful. Chris is such a brilliant illustrator. Um, and it was just full of life and energy. And I was just very excited to be a part of it. Um, so yeah, I mean that's basically how I got on board early on.
I'm curious. Fun question. Which one do you enjoy more, orchestrating slash conducting or composing?
I think composing, just because it has all the parts in it at one time. You get to orchestrate and compose at the same time, basically, as a composer.
Mm.
And also conducting is like the payoff to everything. You get to stand in front of a big orchestra and just have a great old time with it. So um, yeah, I think composing is definitely the apex experience, but everything else is the kind of like frosting on the cake in a way.
Now, this story is set in Shanghai. Lots of Chinese culture all over the story, of course. And I read that you incorporated several Chinese music instruments in your process of composing this score. Can you tell us more about that? What are these instruments, and did it take you a bit of time to learn or understand them? Yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a hard thing, as a Westerner, to immerse yourself in that culture. And I think Chris and I, from the outset, didn't want to do anything that was maybe like just kind of a straight ahead solos playing on top of an orchestra kind of a thing. So what we kind of set out to do is take all these instruments and incorporate them into the fabric of this kind of Western score. So I spent a lot of time at Asian music stores throughout Los Angeles, and amassed all these instruments that I had absolutely no idea how to play. And then I kind of messed around on all of them, and got them to the point where I felt somewhat comfortable making noise with them. And then I called in the people that actually knew how to play them, and I let them just do their magic on top of everything. But I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of let the people that have spent their whole lives learning these instruments do their magic, and then I come in and kind of go, well, what if we tried it this way? Or well, I need this kind of sound. What can this thing do for me? And let them carry the score with their performances. So. But it was so much fun. I mean, as a composer, you always want to discover new weird things, and this was the ultimate kind of a exploratory zone that we could live in. Um,
One of the things I noticed about this film as I was watching it was it had a lot of kung fu or martial arts elements to it. Um, so I'm just wondering, what were some of the things that you apply for the music for some of these films? Some of these films more action-packed scenes. Did you draw from other martial art movies, perhaps?
um, yes and no. I think percussion plays a huge part in the action scenes in the film, and we used a lot of like Chinese vocal elements as well.
Hmm.
And I think we never wanted to quote too much of any one genre in the film, so we tried to be as respectful to obviously the culture. I mean, Chris was very very keen on making it as authentic as we could without kind of pigeonholing the score into being purely Eastern or purely Western. So
Mm.
I think yes, I watched a lot of Bruce Lee before I started working on this film, and I had a lot of fun, kind of absorbing a lot of that, a lot of Chinese opera and Chinese theater, um, a lot of those like really theatrical drumming groups that they have, and then I just kind of let by osmosis that work its way into my writing. And I think it I think as with anything, you kind of start writing and hope for the best, and then where it ends up is maybe not a place that you thought it was going to be when you started. But but we had a lot of fun with a lot of the action sequences in the film.
Obviously, this movie is also a bit of a throwback to Aladdin and Genie making three wishes, and occasionally the dragon would also get wacky and morph into all kinds of shapes and sizes. So, in creating the themes, the character themes
Mhm.
for Din and Long and Lena, what were some of the things that you took into consideration to capture their essence and personality, even at their wackiest moments?
Yeah, I think Din was the first big major theme I had written, and he's such a carefree kind of idealistic young boy who a man, young boy who's just searching to try to find his friend, and he's kind of hopelessly positive the entire movie. It's not till the end when I think he starts to get a little down. But the theme for him is very major, very bouncy, a lot of big leaps in happiness in that, and a lot of his setting of that theme is done very simply on a piano or in the orchestra, but with a lot of kind of like upbeat percussion in the background or synthetic textures to kind of give it some life. Whereas whereas Din and Lena have this very simple motive that kind of plays anytime they're having a moment together. And I based it on, they have this very sweet little thing where they hold their pinkies together as a pinky swear, and they say day by day, year by year, and they have this little saying, and I just based this little motive off like the three syllables, like day by day. It just goes bum 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 bum, and it kind of just is a little bit of a word painting for them. And then Long's theme, it tends to be much more sweeping and grand as his character, you know, um, occupies so much space and energy on screen. I didn't feel like I really needed to add any more energy to him. He was doing it all in the performance. So I just let the orchestra kind of sweep away in the background with him. And then the bad guys, are goons in the film, have a kind of a dark, lower end of the orchestra sound that shows up every now and then. There's some interesting kind of sonic elements for them that are the weird instruments, and some of the Chinese instruments that have been manipulated to sound a little darker than normal. So um, yeah.
And you've worked on Raya the Last Dragon previously as an orchestrator. Now, having worked on Wish Dragon, what did you notice that stands out about Sony Pictures Animation? We hear about Disney all the time. Disney takes up the conversations, but what is it that makes Sony Pictures Animation such a well-oiled machine, in your opinion?
Well, I think in the last few years, I mean, Christine Belson and all these new new executives and new kind of leadership that's come in, they've really kind of stood out as taking maybe bigger chances on films. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse, and and I'm thinking even Mitchell's that just came out. I mean, they're turning out really really interesting and unique animation that maybe isn't your traditional kind of sweeping sweet Pixar Disney kind of stuff, but pushes the boundaries a little more on the way we think about animation and the filmmaking in general for animation. And I think Wish Dragon I think was one of their first co-productions overseas. They worked with Base Effects and Tencent and all these companies, and I think it was a great a great environment and a great relationship for them, because they could bring, you know, their wealth of experience and knowledge of years of churning out great animated films with kind of this new life of base effects and in Sony and everything, and over in and on the eastern side. And together I just felt like they created something that really gave Chris freedom to do what he'd like, but also the foundation of working within a studio that really knows what they're doing. So I think it came together really nicely, and obviously Sony's latest offerings out into the world are all so strong as far as animation goes. So I really think it won't be long until they're really, you know, I mean, not that they aren't already in that conversation with Disney and Pixar and stuff, but of course, as you're saying, those are obviously the ones I think most people think about. But lately, I feel like Sony has really, really kind of pushed the boundaries and upped the game in their output. So I'm excited to see what Sony does next, and you know, I'm thrilled to be a part of that world, and it was just such an honor to work with them on something like this. So um, yeah, I did. It's just great leadership, basically.
Mhm, thank you. And I always ask composers that I interviewed this question because I always want to, I guess you can call pick their brain or pick their wisdom, if you will.
Mhm.
So, what is your advice for aspiring conductors, orchestrators, composers out there that want to break into the business? What should they look out for?
Well, I mean, you know, unfortunately, it's not a business I think that has any single career track, and I
Hmm.
think it's hard to say any one thing is the secret to becoming a success, or having, you know, having success in what we do. I think ultimately you can only control what you can control, and that's your music and what your output is. And I always tell younger composers, just no matter what your project is that you're on, to do as best as you can, to write as good of music as possible, because you never know who will hear it, and you'll never have anyone to answer to but yourself when it comes to your creativity. So I think, you know, if you can really apply yourself to, even if it's a short film that's 5 minutes, and you know, it's for a student project or something like that, allowing yourself to really take it seriously and dig into it is only going to benefit you in the future. And then beyond that, I think it's honestly just being patient and having perseverance. And I think you know, everybody will often get a chance at some point in their life to do something that they want to do if they put enough effort into it. I think the hard part in Los Angeles or wherever you are based, trying to get into the film industry, is just having enough patience to allow that opportunity to come. And I think that's such a huge part of this process, because there's a lot of people that want to do it, and there's a lot of really talented people already doing it. So, and sometimes it takes a while until you're in the conversation, and ultimately that's just because you've been putting in good work. You're you know, a lot of the stuff you're doing is going out into the world and doing well. And again, you never know what's going to be successful, so always try to do the best work you can, no matter what the project is. So I
Mm,
think that's the best advice I can offer anyone, is to just be patient and do the best work you can.
excellent. That's a great advice. And lastly, finally, what are you working on next? What can we anticipate from you next on the horizon?
I co-scored a film with a dear friend called Pig. It's a Nicolas Cage
Ah,
film. Neon is distributing it. I think tentatively it's set for an August release, um, which
awesome.
is a very, very fun, interesting, you know, Nicolas Cage movie. But he plays such a brilliant character, and it's done by this lovely first-time director, Michael Sarnowski, and I think it'll do well for him. And then I'm just finishing up a score now for a new Michael Caine, Ben Foster kind of medieval epic, you know, in the grand tradition of those old religious kind of you know, crusade kind of films, with a Czech director, Peter Jackal. It's been a ton of fun. We've put in a lot of work on it. but I'm just getting ready to record that score. So there's some more noise to be coming.
Well, definitely looking forward to those. And for my fans at home, everybody go check out Wish Dragon, arriving June 11 only on Netflix. Philip, thank you for talking to me and congratulations.
No, thanks, Rama. Have a great day.